Hello. So the question today is, what does it take to actually heal, to actually get better, to actually go from being someone who is unwell to being well? So in order to get into that, we're going to talk about healing and healership. So what I've noticed and what brought this video on is that over the last couple of years, I've been coaching, and the focus of my coaching is productivity, flow state, and assisting people in developing a harmonious relationship with their work so that they can do it and do it well and do a lot of it and succeed. So that's been great. It's been fun. And I've learned a ton as I've gone about it. And it's really turned into this wonderful practice. But then what I would start noticing is that after, say, a couple months of this sort of coaching, we cover the bulk of our bases and we have a good relationship with our work. And then the conversation just naturally, organically lends itself to healing unresolved stuff, unresolved emotion, unresolved whatever in our field that is blocking us from moving into the higher, more cooler layers of our expansion and growth. Right? And so you may have observed this in yourself. It's like as you grow and manifest your potential and become more successful, like as you expand outward, you hit these boundaries that cause you to look inside yourself, and you have to really address stuff like self-doubt, for example, or insecurity or worry or fear or shame or whatever it is. Like just as an example, say like in order to expand, like, for me to make videos and put stuff online in order to grow my whole business, I have to become really comfortable talking on the camera. And so I have to work out a lot of stuff that I've, say trauma that I've picked up along the way when I used to speak to other people and I would be really boring and people would say, "Oh, Brent, this is really boring. I don't want to hear that." And, there would be trauma. So undoing that trauma in order to be able to talk to you. So that would be an example of one thing. But there's hundreds of this sort of thing. There's thousands. And so anyway, so going into healing and noticing that these sessions would become healing, and they stopped resembling the tone of coaching and more resembling like a healing session. And, myself and the people I'm working with, they would confirm this. And so thus began the practice of learning about healing and studying healing and how it actually works. And so in this session today, in this talk, I wrote down, we're going to say 10 points, scanning it really quickly, 10 points about healing, about how to actually resolve unwellness in yourself so that you can be well and so that you can be good to go. And that's what we're going to do today. So if we've never met before, first things first, my name is Brent. If you're interested in what we're about to get into, please hit the like button, consider subscribing so I can support you all the time. I have a toddler, and so she keeps me busy, but I'm really aiming to make this a weekly thing, making weekly videos for you here. Please subscribe for more. I have a whole bunch of different offerings, and so the descriptions for those, the links for those are down in the description, so you can learn about them there. The main thing I want to share with you is the Sovereign Creators Collective, which I've recently launched. We've had 2 of our bi-weekly sessions so far, and it is just so cool. This would be for you if you look into the future and you're like, oh my God, what the hell are we heading into? It's like AI and economic collapse and war and famine and, all these sorts of like worries and confusion coming down the pike. And so what would it take? The big question here is, what would it take to be so centered and so solid in yourself that you can actually be a leader and a role model going into the future? So taking care of ourselves, doing the work that we're here to do, supporting each other, and actually being those that can prepare the world so that things can actually get better, so that we can actually bring in a better reality instead of being in this reactive mode of looking at the reality that's collapsing, the old ways of being that are collapsing. So that's just like the top overview. Check out the link below if you're interested in that, and let us get into it now. Good. So we'll start at the very top level of healing. This is healing as I've come to conceptualize it. Now, a few things to establish. I'm speaking here mostly about healing the mental and emotional and spiritual body. This is where I've devoted the most of my attention and my practice. And when it comes to the physical body and physical ailments, I don't know very much more than the average lay person. And I'm learning a little bit here and there. But for me, I really love the process of finding emotional unwellness and dissolving it so that we can just really feel safe and secure and good inside of ourselves. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. Now, with that said, my finding and my hypothesis is that there is a lot of physical unwellness that we suffer from, where when we resolve certain emotional unwellness, then it positively affects the physiology. And there's like a certain logic behind this. And so there's certain physical ailments that can resolve themselves if we heal ourselves on the emotional, mental, and spiritual level. But that's, doesn't mean all the time that all of your physical ailments will go away. But really, as far as I'm concerned, why don't we heal the emotional field and then see what we get from there? And I'll have a little bit more to say about that too, about paying attention to the body. But that's just the angle that we're taking here. Also, as we get into this, I want you to know that whereas I've been studying this for many years and I've gone very deep into it and I've come at it from a lot of different esoteric and occult methodologies and ways of considering it, and also a lot of, say, contemporary psychological ways of coming at it, do not mistake this as the same thing for being a certified, say, therapist, which I'm not. Like, I don't have like a mental health certification of some kind. And so I'm mentioning that because if you are listening to this and coming along this journey with me, I need to trust that you are of sound mind and you're not, say, like in a place of crisis, where like if you were to start looking at some of your emotional wounds, it would have the risk of overwhelming you and making things worse and re-traumatizing you. So you need to first and foremost follow your own intuition and really do what makes sense for you. And if you need help, please reach out and find help. Get support in any way that you can, and keep yourself safe. Keeping yourself safe mentally, emotionally, and physically is absolutely the number one highest priority. So, because I'm going to get into some very heavy hitting stuff. I'm going to share with you everything that has allowed healing to take place. But what that means is having a lot of courage and looking inside of areas of ourselves that we don't necessarily feel comfortable looking in. And so a certain level of readiness and groundedness is required for that. So I'm relying on you to know if you're ready to go into this discussion or not. If you're not, there's no point against you for that. This will be here when you're ready for it. I'm not going to take this video down. So, do this at your own pace. Good. All right. Now, so unwellness. I would like for you to consider that just as your body is inclined toward homeostasis, just as your body knows how to heal cuts, just as your body knows how to send white blood cells out towards pathogens in order to keep your cells healthy, just as your body knows how to digest and beat your heart, so does your emotional and mental body know how to regulate itself as well. And it is subject to the same laws of homeostasis as your body is. And so what that means is that if there's ever a wobble in your wellness, if something happens where you're upset or, something throws you off, then as soon as that happens, there is a counterforce of wellness, of homeostasis, that immediately begins guiding you back to your center point, back to your seat. And so the idea here is that we're learning to recognize that guidance back to homeostasis and learning how to trust it. Because what will happen is the biggest obstacle, if we're to speak generally, the biggest obstacle to emotional and mental healing is when we hold a stance, a mental position or a belief against the movement back to wellness. And you would think, if I say it like this, why would we have a mental stance or a belief that would prevent us from going back to wellness? But what you'll discover is that all of us have them. It's very, very common. And it's always extremely, once you see it, once you look at yourself and discover that you hold a belief that prevents you from stepping into wellness, you'll look at it and you'll chuckle and you'll see that it's funny and it's silly and you let it go and step into wellness. But until that point comes, it's not silly. Like, it feels like a life or death fight. So when the humor comes online, that's how you'll know that healing is actually imminent. Like, the healing is happening in present tense. The humor is a good indication of that. But nevertheless, yes, it is our mentally held positions that prevent us from just moving right back into emotional wellness. Generally speaking, culturally, broadly speaking, we have been conditioned to not trust or respect our emotional field. And this is mostly a result, as far as I can tell, from the movement of, say, positive psychology. And even earlier, now that I'm thinking about it. So say before, I'm thinking, say, like the 1950s, the 1940s, when we would have emotions. We'd have grief, we'd have sadness, anger, guilt, or shame. What would we do back then? Of course, we would just not pay attention to those feelings. And if they'd ever crop up in our life, we would just repress them, just push them back down, and we would consider them to be bad and consider them to be something to be really defeated or fixed or gotten rid of. And then, maybe would have, say, addictive problems or whatever, or eating problems in order to just continuously combat emotions that come up. And then a little bit later, there was sort of a self-help movement that came along, which we'd broadly call positive psychology, where we'd say to each other, just think positive and find the silver lining on the dark cloud. And this was sort of helpful too, because it would give us a boost of energy whenever we do it, and it would seem to be helpful in the moment, but still, it would not give us space to deal with the unresolved emotion, and we would be basically on a sort of a mission to only have positive feelings and positive thoughts, and really attempting to get rid of what we would label as negativity, no matter what it takes. Just getting rid of all negativity, emotional negativity, and mental negativity. And then this, of course, would also cause a buildup of polarity and wouldn't help either. So it's only just recently that we are learning the importance of our emotional field and the importance of our emotions, and how emotions have a way of circulating, where when we experience an emotion like regret or anger or guilt, when it comes up, it really was always supposed to be a short-lived event. It was always just supposed to come up and be seen just as a movement of energy in our bodies, giving it space to move, breathing with it, breathing through it, and then eventually the energy of that emotion processes and is reintegrated back into the entirety or the gestalt of our emotional field. But if we have an emotion that comes up and then we decide that it shouldn't be there, or decide that we're afraid of it because, if we let this emotion run rampant, then it may create bad results for us, so therefore we need to get rid of it, then what we do is we contract physically and we apply a sort of holding pattern on it, where the motion is stopped, it's stymied right there. And then it's sort of calcified and made into sort of a thing where, like, if you were to view it, if you were to be one of these people that can see the human aura, you would see it as sort of a lump in the aura that is just held there. And that's what it would look like, say, from the objective point of view. And then in the subjective point of view, we would just sort of shove it somewhere and sort of erect kind of a wall, or put it in a box, or just create some sort of like a division where we are dividing that thing from us. And then what happens over time is when we do that, as time goes on, there's still, because of the pull of homeostasis, there's still, like, that thing that we pushed away is still kind of coming at us. And the reason why it's coming at us is because there's this natural homeostatic drive back to unity, reunion, like the union of all of our different aspects into one single aspect. But then that natural drive towards healing, we interpret it as it attacking us, like, say, an intrusive thought or an intrusive emotion. And we're like, why won't it go away? I thought I was over this. And then if enough time passes, then through the built up energy of it, the built up division and the built up sort of trench warfare between me and this thing, now this thing actually becomes scary and we become scared of it. And since this thing is us, like remember at the very core, it's us. Like we like took ourselves and cut ourselves in half, right? So it's still me over there, but it has this idea of otherness. It also is afraid of us, and it also feels attacked by us. And rightfully so, right? Because we were attacking it. So it does feel like it's under threat. But since it's us, I feel like I'm under threat. Do you see? It's the same consciousness on either side going through different phases of attack and defense. And so then real fear builds up. And then from there, physical symptoms and all sorts of stuff can happen from there. So it sucks, right? And the irony is that all it ever was just a simple surfacing of an emotion that if we were to just offer it our attention and just bear witness to it, then it would circulate and complete itself and we could just get on with it. So you can imagine me in my position as I encounter people that I work with, that's what I witness. I'm bearing witness to the big built up saga of one person that they consider themselves to be, say, the main player of their whole thing. And then like this sort of funky little piece of them over there that keeps pestering them and giving them trouble. The whole process of healing is guiding that person back to the reunification of the aspects of the self into one thing. And so you can see it now as I lay it out, how simple it is, and how when we don't achieve that unification of the different aspects of the self, then that's how you get sabotage. And that's also how you get cyclical problems, like problems that just we keep running into again and again and again. Like say, you're in a relationship and you run into certain problems with that partner and then you break up with them and get a new partner and then you run into the problems there. Or say you have problems in your life. So you quit, you pack up your stuff and move to another country and then it's like exciting for a little bit and then you start living there and then suddenly, all of those problems that you had over there, you have now in your new home. It's exactly the same thing. Like everything that is unresolved in you, you will end up creating life circumstances that are specifically designed to bring this unresolved stuff to your attention so that you can heal it. And so that's what I meant earlier by saying, like, when we are really truly ready to expand into greater levels of success, of like doing, of really creating new, bigger versions of ourselves and our life and our art out into the world, then we're going to expand against these boundaries, and then our attention will be directed inward in order to achieve more unity. As above, so below. That's the basic concept behind healing. Good. So one major way, okay, let's do it this way. Okay. So when it comes to the reunification process, when it comes to actually healing, there is a two-step process that I've discovered that is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly simple once you get it. Like once you get it, if I can explain it to you, you'll get it, you'll internalize it, and you'll just see it everywhere, and you'll take this on your healing journey for the rest of your life. This is really a miraculous understanding that I'm going to share with you. And the only drawback to it that I found is that it's very difficult to explain because it's very similar to what we see in pop culture and just sort of our general cultural understanding of healing, but it's not exactly the same. And so you have to kind of slow down in order to really take this in. So, follow me along for a few minutes as I explain this to you, and you'll be able to have this forever. This is the juice is worth the squeeze with this one. So, in order to heal off something, we first need to start with the mental position, and then we heal the emotions. It goes in that order, as far as I can see. The mental position and then the healing. if we attempt to do the emotional healing first without tackling the mental position, then you run into this sort of trap of like listening to teachers talk about how you should drop negativity and think positively. And you're like, yeah, like I believe that factually, but I can't actually access it. Like I believe you're right, but I can't feel it. I can't step into the experience of it. And so now I'm just guilt tripping myself for not being a more positive person. So what we always want to do is we want to arrive at the correct mental position that is life affirming as opposed to life denying. And then only once that is achieved, then we can move to the emotional healing. We make a decision on the very, very topmost rational level about what we think we should feel, about what is the correct perception. And then once we have put a stake in the correct perception, then our emotional field will begin to reflect that correct perception. The process of making the mental shift that I'm going to explain as we go into this, the process of making this mental shift is a 0 to 1 shift. So it happens now or not now. It is not something that we work our way toward gradually over time. The process of adopting the correct mental position is done now. Like just in the same way where if I tell you that the capital of Poland is Warsaw, and you thought the capital of Poland was, say, Cairo, and I show you a map so that you can see that the capital of Poland is Warsaw, you don't need to gradually let go of the old idea and get to the new idea, right? Just the old idea is immediately dropped and the new idea is immediately accepted. There's no process, there's no ceremony, there's no time to pass, there's no working your way up to it. You may accidentally a little bit later, through a slip of the tongue, say like the wrong capital city for Poland, but eventually that stops and it doesn't even necessarily have to happen that way. So once something that is false is seen to be false, then the process of replacing the false with the truth is immediate and automatic. So this is all really important for us to establish here. And and then I wanted to say also that that you will see as we continue that there is a very, very close tie between that which is false and that which is life denying. In other words, and this is like kind of like I can't say 1,000% that I know this for sure, but this is like my deep suspicion about life, and this is kind of what I'm working with. This is my leading edge right now, is that if it's false, it's life denying. And if it's life denying, it's false. Like that's the nature of their connection. It's a one-to-one connection. And then by contrast, if it's true, it's life affirming. And the way that you know it's life affirming is that it's true. For example, if I say something to you and physically your body just like opens up and relaxes and you become more centered and you just feel like more yourself, then what you just heard, what you just listened to was the truth. That's how you know. Good. Okay, good. So we're really setting the table here. So let's take an example now. Let's say that you have an idea about yourself that is false and is therefore life denying. So in other words, you have an idea about yourself that you are not worthy of love. And that you don't deserve to be recognized and appreciated until you've really succeeded enough. And that's just how you feel about yourself. Maybe it's the living environment you were conditioned and brought up in, and maybe it's the culture you were brought up in as well, because this is, of course, a very, very pervasive cultural idea that you don't deserve love until you've earned it. You don't deserve respect until you've earned it, right? Okay. So This is an idea. Now, you believe this idea. So you think that this idea is true. And because you think this idea is true, you feel the way you would feel if you believed it were true, right? If I believe that my deserving of love and respect is conditional based on how much I accomplish, I feel bad and I feel anxious and I feel insecure because I think this is true, right? Does this make sense? And so now you see what I mean, where if we were to just come at the emotionality, like, oh, feel positive and just like try to like feel good, it wouldn't be possible. Now, furthermore, it wouldn't be possible because the idea is creating that emotional unwellness. So now, furthermore, if I were to say to you, hey, just so you know, you do deserve love and respect regardless of what you do, you might say to me, okay, like that sounds nice, Brent, but I'm just not there. I can't really step into the first-hand experience of that thing you just said. And so what that means is that you kind of believe that you deserve love and respect as you are without conditions. But if you're being honest, you actually believe that respect and love is conditional and should be conditional. So let's slow down and pause here for a second. Notice how you find both to be true. There's this idea over here of like how you think it ought to be. And there's this other idea of how you're afraid it might be this way. Like you really deeply suspect and deeply believe on the final analysis that your deserving of love and respect is conditional. Now, we can talk about the process of shifting, aka healing. We always start with honesty. If you are unwilling to be honest about what you think, about what you believe, then nothing can happen. And I mean it. I mean it. Healing cannot happen with honesty. Honesty, deep, powerful, profound, courageous, brave honesty, steadfast honesty, comes with us every goddamn step of the way. Every step of the way. We need like supercharged, turbo, cutting honesty and a commitment to honesty that because the further along we go, the more difficult it is to be honest. So it's like a renewed commitment to honesty every single time. And the honesty is important because we can actually believe things that we don't approve of. So you may believe that your deserving of love and respect is conditional. It's based on the right conditions. It's based on you succeeding and doing good enough. And you think to yourself, it's wrong to think that way. It's wrong to believe that. But you believe it anyway. Despite thinking it's wrong to believe that. Do you see? You believe it anyway. So in your honesty, you say to yourself, or in a healing session, you say, I really do believe that respect and love must be earned, say. And so we say, okay, good. Step one, laying it all out like that. Step two is we don't attack. Right. I'm so happy this is coming out. So from here, going into step two, the natural, forgivable, innocent temptation is to move into attacking mode and to discover what we believe and then find a way to make it wrong. Just think about this. Like imagine like a toddler came up to you and like a toddler that you love, say like a nephew, a niece, son, daughter, or just some child you care about. And they came up to you and said, I don't deserve love. I suck. I'm bad. I don't deserve love. Think of the strength of your temptation to say, that's not true, honey. That's not true. You deserve love. And That's because it feels so painful for us to see them hold a false point of view about themselves that we want to attack it, the false point of view, as quickly as we can and correct it. But the problem is whenever you attack a belief or an idea that's held in a psychology, then what will happen is that being on the receiving end of that attack causes one to automatically go into defense. And so then we shut down, and then the thing that we're attacking, instead of healing and being processed, it becomes more deeply entrenched. And we start to hold a position on it, and we become more aligned with this idea than we were a minute ago. So noticing this in yourself, noticing you believe, okay, my deserving of love and respect is conditional. There's a temptation to go, okay, yeah, I know that's wrong. I got to think something else. I got to think something else. I got to think something else. I got to, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do to get rid of this idea? Get rid of this thought, right? Always wanting to get rid of. So in order to cause the shift to happen, in order to cause the healing to happen, we approach it with an air of respect. And we approach it the way, not like the way we would as a crusader, but we approach it the way a scientist would approach, where there's more of an air of neutrality around us and a willingness to just simply observe without affecting anything. We just want to watch the ecosystem of the belief system and just learn, and learn again with appreciation, with neutrality, with patience, allowing this thing to be here. This is the secret sauce of healing. Consciousness, bringing in loving, non-judgmental consciousness. Consciousness is what heals. Consciousness is what allows the system to untangle, uncalcify, to melt, and process and have all that energy be reintegrated. It is the sun to the ice. It's the melter. And the attempt to fix or do or attack or debate with or argue is what fixes the thing in place. So we bring our non-judgmental attention to this thing, realizing that if you had an idea about yourself that you're deserving of love and respect is conditional, the truth is that up until this moment, you have had this idea, and you've also been subconsciously attacking this idea up until now. Because you've been versing yourself so much, and I need to think positive, I need to heal, and whatever, I need to get rid of this, that you've had this thing, but then you've up until now, subconsciously, below the level of your awareness, you've been attacking it. You've been in a position of againstness, of disapproval toward it, in a misguided attempt to get rid of it, thinking that if I don't approve of it, if I dislike it, then eventually it'll go away. But instead, the opposite has happened. It's been further stagnated. I call this sometimes a clusterfuck, because that's what it is. It's a tightness. It's a wound-uppedness where nothing can move anymore. It's just stopped. Trench warfare stopped. Nothing's happening. No progress is being made. So we bring attention to the thing, to the belief system. And for the first time now, we say, okay, I allow it to be there. And so in my healing practice, I'll say, hey, like this thing, like this belief here, would you be willing to let it be there? And the person will always reply, and again, totally innocent, will always say, well, I don't have a choice, do I? I don't have a choice. It's already there. And the trick and the key is that you do have a choice about whether or not to approve of its presence. And you've been, up until now, in a mode, just by default, you've been in a mode of disapproval. So we switch the mode from disapproval to approval. Whether or not the psychology is there makes no difference. Like, it makes no difference. It's already there. It already is. And it's not about that. It's about our mental position toward that thing. Flipping the switch from disapproval to approval. So we look at the idea that we hold and we say, I'm willing to let this be here. I'm willing to let myself feel this way, despite knowing better. Despite knowing better, I allow myself to be angry at myself. Despite knowing better, I allow myself to feel that my worthiness is conditional. Despite knowing better, I allow my mind to be as it is. I allow my beliefs to be as they are. I allow myself to be as I am. Right? Feel that right now. Just feel that. I allow myself to be as I am. For a moment, I hereby drop my whole campaign on myself to make myself better or something, to make myself worthy, to make myself deserving, to make myself successful. I drop my whole campaign and just allow myself to be exactly as I am. It's nice, right? And so then, at a certain point, the healing begins. So you look at your beliefs and you discover, okay, I have a belief about myself that I don't deserve love and I don't deserve respect until I earn it or until I do enough. And you realize, okay, this is just an idea. It's just an idea that I have about my worthiness. I would suggest, in order to really enact this healing, that you actually say these words. It's just an idea. It's just a judgment. And then, allowing the idea to be there, what you'll notice is that there's just a little unlocking of yourself. There's just like a little bit of spaciousness, a little bit of humor, a little bit of lightness has opened up. And that's how you know that the healing has happened. That's how it feels. It's a very subtle feeling almost every single time. It's not like deep and whoa, profound. It's just like, oh, just an opening. You might say to yourself, this is a very powerful tool here. You might say, I seem to be convinced. I seem to be convinced my worthiness is conditional. I seem to be convinced that I don't deserve love or respect as I am now. My conviction is that I don't deserve wellness or love or respect until I've earned it or until I've worked hard enough. What's powerful about these phrases is that when we say, I seem to be convinced, it's me referring to a conviction that's held in my mind. And I'm just aware it's just a floppy disk that's in the slot. That's it. Through that awareness, the break has occurred in that moment. Like, again, do you feel this? Feel this, little section of the conversation that we're in. I seem to be convinced I don't deserve love. I seem to be convinced I'm off track. Feels different, right? That's the healing taking place. That is the going from 0 to 1. And now, as you go about your day, there's nothing left for you to do except just perhaps to observe how you feel over the course of the day. Do you feel lighter? Do you feel better? Are there certain little issues that just seem to have resolved themselves as a result of this? Certain issues will resolve themselves in your life, and you may be tempted to say, oh, it was going to happen anyway. But pay attention to where you suspect on a heart level the connection between that and this. Now, once we do this, what you will discover, because up until now, you've been pedaling a bicycle of an old idea. You've been pedaling a bicycle of, I need to earn my love and respect. And so what that means is that even though we do what we just did here, there will still be echoes of those old thoughts just because you're practiced at thinking them. And so when you observe old ideas coming up, there may be a temptation now to go, oh, darn, nothing happened. I can't, I thought I healed this. I thought I was gone for good. And then we go into despair. We feel like we are backtracking. It feels like the healing didn't take place at all. And then maybe then we actually start going into fighting against the idea and trying to debate with ourselves. But then that would be a mistake, because then you actually inadvertently start pedaling the bicycle again. And don't worry, the way the story ends is eventually you stop pedaling the bicycle and momentum dies. Like from what we just did, we've entered into section 2 of this entire conversation. So the future is secured for you. The only difference now is how smoothly and gracefully you will allow the old momentum to die out. Right? So it's not like you're going to undo the healing. It's just how smoothly and gracefully it'll take place. So that's what is meant by going from the 0 to 1 and then going into your day and then allowing the shift that you just went through to take place and to integrate. That's the other thing, is that what happened is being integrated into deeper levels of your psychology and into your body, your blood, your bones. It's being pulled in, and it will feel like something. Like, for example, if it's a very profound healing session that we go through, then you may find yourself totally exhausted, like just totally exhausted at the end, having not exerted yourself in any physical way at all. You'll find yourself maybe dehydrated, needing to drink a whole bunch of water. That's because what's happening is being internalized so that you can really digest and bring in deep what you went through. So that's the healing process, really. I'd like for you to mention that there's another element of this. So, we were mostly talking about, healing the mind. Now, let's just say like we heal the mind, heal the point of view, but then we discover that there's still just say a pocket of unresolved emotion. Now, this would be for you if say like there are emotions that come up in you that just threaten you, like they just feel really scary, like feelings of fear, of overwhelm. If you've been conditioned to be afraid of certain emotions, like say despair or anger, like if you've been taught, for example, the way I was on some level, that it's unhealthy to be angry and that your anger has sort of a destructive force about it, so therefore you should never be angry in order to keep everybody safe, this kind of thing. So then you'd have unexpressed anger, and then you become afraid as the anger rears its head, so there's fear around that too, and so you just have like layers building up around the whole thing. A big discovery for me, as I've been just untangling all of these stagnant emotions in my life, as I've just gone through my life, my healing journey, is that at the very end of the day, there's nothing in you to be afraid of. There's nothing in you, in other words, to be intimidated by. And in reality, there's nothing in you that can harm you. The only place I can think of where there would be some asterisks, the only place I can imagine where there's considerations to keep in mind is, like, say if you have like say suicidal thoughts and they come up for you, and if you were to believe them, then that would not be good. You would not want to believe these ideas. If these ideas surface, but you don't believe them and can just see them as just ideas floating through your consciousness, that's okay. As far as I can tell. Any therapists out there, please double check that for me, fact check for me. But that's how it appears. So there's nothing in you to be afraid of. Now, does that mean that you should listen to what your mind says all the time? No. Does that mean that you should learn the difference between your mind and your intuition? 1,000,000%. And I've spoken at length about intuition in my earlier videos. But for the time being, there's no emotion, there's no experience, there's no sensation in you that can come up that can be too much for you. This is what I mean to say. Thoughts and information and beliefs aside, just emotional content, energetic content, like on the experiential level. If there's an experience that's coming up from inside of you, there's nothing in you that can harm you. It's just energy. A super important mantra that I've learned and adopted is all energy is just energy. All emotion is just emotion. All experience is just experience. I learned that from Eliza Matadalian. And so therefore, when emotion comes up, when experience comes up, your job is simply to be there as the witness, to just witness and bring your consciousness to it. Again, neutral, loving, respectful, observant, witnessing witness. Watching as the energy of it plumes up, breathing into it, breathing out, and observing what happens as you bring your attention to the emotion. What happens as you allow your attention to just stay focused on this thing? What happens? Does it plume up? Does it shrink? Does it collapse? Does it migrate to a different part of your body? What happens? And just observing. And what you may notice is that it will dissolve, and then it will dissolve, and then it will dissolve, layer after layer after layer after layer, being pulled out by your breath. What I've noticed is that I can breathe into the unexpressed emotion like this, and then breathe out, and then that layer of emotion goes out with the breath. Noticing as it becomes less and less strong over time. I would like for you, as you go about your healing journey, to appreciate the enormity of what you're doing. This is a very, very big thing, because everything we're sharing here, like, this is all relatively new. This is new stuff, new material. It's not just from me, it's from other practitioners out there. But this is culturally very unusual. What you and I are talking about here, what we're doing, it's unusual historically, in the sense that no conversation like this would have taken place with our ancestors 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Do not discount how incredibly, incredibly, incredibly significant this is historically. Nowhere near this level of sophistication was available back then, only now. Furthermore, spatially, hopefully this video gets exposed to everybody who needs it, but even if this video maxes out and reaches everybody who needs it, it would not be as much as, say, like a music video or like a sports video or something that has way massive appeal. At least not now, maybe a couple decades or hundreds of years into the future. But this is a conversation that's very specialized. Like, most people are not prepared for this kind of conversation. And so what that means is that we are leaders. We're leading the way with this. We're figuring this out. We're working it out. We're finding things that work. We're having conversations about it. We are leading this conversation. And as if that were not enough, if you're this far in the video, then you've probably noticed that there's a massive inheritance of unresolved pain, not just in us personally as single individuals, but collectively, just passed down in our communities and societies. There's just unresolved pain. You'll feel it on the streets in the form of road rage. You'll feel it in sports stadiums. You feel it in the streets. You feel it in cities. There's just unresolved pain in the world. And then through doing what we're doing, we're also just helping to recycle all of this unprocessed, traumatized energy in the world. It's very, very big stuff. So as you do this and as you get good at this, it would be a mistake to be mad at yourself for not already knowing this, for not doing it better. If you're asking yourself, why is this taking so long? It's because a lot of this is really deep work. It's very profound. So just please appreciate yourself for even watching this video, for listening to this, for learning this, for taking yourself consciously through this process. If you're the type of person who says to themselves, I want to show up as the best and most mature version of myself that I can be. If you have any version of that in your life, if you've ever affirmed that, it's a statement of such unusual, profound, 1% of the 1% psychology. Maybe not 1% of the 1%. I would say 50% of the 1%. So just please appreciate that about yourself. And I guess I'll end here, because I think I've gone on long enough, is to reclaim your humor. As you go about your healing journey, you can adopt a willingness to find all of this funny, to remember that all of this is funny, to remember that all of this is sort of stupid in a funny way, where it's like, you know, if there's like just lots of anxiety and built up tension, you know, to come at the whole thing with like, all right, man, you know, okay, I'll do my best. Let's see what we got. Let's go. And there's a sort of irrationality that I always aim to bring into the world, where it's like, when shit hits the fan, when things get tough, not just in my life, but everywhere, when there's panic and worry, it's like, am I willing to be irrationally happy? Am I willing to have a good day? I was saying to my wife just recently, like, you know, we've been going through a lot of stuff. She and I, like, there's just all sorts of stuff that we've been growing through and healing. And like, there's been a lot of heaviness and loss. And you know, there's a lot that we've been processing. And I said to her in the car, I'm like, let's have a good summer, eh? Let's have a good summer. Let's make this summer fucking great. Where we look back on it and we were like, damn, that was a good summer. And just setting that intention, sort of just irrational, you know, compared to all the news that we're getting, to be like, everything's good, everything's great, let's just have a great time. That just brings in a fresh, important energy into the environment. And it's like lubricant for all of this healing work that we were talking about up until now. There we go. Healing. Let me know your thoughts. Give me your comments, give me your likes, write down what you think, write down any questions you have, write down your impressions about this. Because again, all of this is a work in progress, but this is, you know, everything I've shared with you is the core of what has allowed me to attain miraculous results with clients that I've worked with. If you're interested in getting a one-on-one session, all the information for that is below. Don't miss out on it. Join us at the Sovereign Creators Collective. I will catch you on the next one. Thank you for watching.